The single dad everyone mocked, until his daughter's secret changed an entire town. The rain poured so heavily that the streets looked like rivers. People hurried under umbrellas, trying to escape the storm, but one man kept walking without caring about the cold water soaking through his worn-out jacket. His name was Ethan Carter. In one hand, he carried a lunchbox. In the other, he held the tiny hand of his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. "Daddy," Lily whispered with a smile, "one day we'll have a warm house again, won't we?" Ethan looked at her bright eyes and forced a smile despite the pain in his heart. "Of course we will, sweetheart. I promise." That promise was the only thing keeping him alive. 3 years earlier, Ethan had owned a successful construction company. He and his wife, Emma, dreamed of giving Lily the happiest childhood possible. Then tragedy struck. Emma was killed by a drunk driver on her way home from work. Everything changed overnight. Ethan couldn't focus on his business while raising Lily alone. Clients disappeared. Debts piled up. Eventually, he lost everything: the company, the house, and nearly all his savings. Friends who once admired him slowly disappeared. Only Lily stayed beside him. Every morning Ethan worked 2 jobs. During the day he delivered packages. At night he cleaned office buildings. He barely slept 4 hours. Still, every evening he made sure Lily had dinner before he ate anything himself. Sometimes dinner was only bread and soup. Sometimes he pretended he wasn't hungry. Lily noticed. She always noticed. One afternoon Ethan arrived at Lily's school to pick her up. Several parents stared at his old clothes. One father laughed loudly. "Poor guy. Can't even buy decent shoes." Another added, "Imagine growing up with a loser like that." Ethan heard every word. He simply held Lily's hand and walked away. Inside, his heart broke. On the walk home Lily squeezed his hand. "Daddy." "Yes, you're not a loser." He smiled. "What makes you say that?" "Because superheroes don't wear expensive clothes. They protect people. You protect me." Ethan couldn't stop the tears forming in his eyes. That night, after Lily fell asleep, he quietly cried in the kitchen. He wasn't crying because people insulted him. He was crying because he feared he could never give Lily the life she deserved. The next morning Ethan discovered something unusual. Lily had left early for school. Her backpack felt strangely light. He assumed she had forgotten her books. After work he asked her teacher if Lily had been studying well. The teacher looked surprised. "Lily is wonderful. But what? She never brings lunch." Ethan froze. "What do you mean? She always says she isn't hungry." His stomach twisted. Every morning he packed her favorite sandwich. Where had it gone? The next day Ethan quietly followed her from a distance after she entered school. Instead of eating during lunch, Lily walked behind the gymnasium. There sat an elderly homeless man wrapped in torn blankets. Without saying a word, Lily handed him her lunch. Every single bite. The old man smiled with tears in his eyes. "You don't have to keep doing this." Lily answered softly. "My daddy says no one should be hungry." Ethan felt like his heart had stopped. He leaned against the wall, unable to breathe. She had been giving away her own food every day. Not because anyone asked her. Because she believed kindness mattered more than comfort. That evening Ethan asked gently, "Lily, why didn't you tell me?" She looked nervous. "I knew you'd worry. I can eat after school. But Grandpa Henry has nobody. If Mommy were alive, she'd help him too." Ethan hugged her tighter than ever before. "You have the biggest heart I've ever seen." The following weekend Ethan met the homeless man. His name was Henry. Once, Henry had been a high school history teacher. Medical bills after his wife's illness destroyed his finances. He lost everything. Yet despite his circumstances, he remained kind and polite. Henry refused money. "I only accept what I truly need." Over the next several weeks Ethan began bringing Henry warm meals after work. Sometimes Lily read books aloud while Henry listened with a smile. The unlikely friendship changed all 3 of their lives. One chilly afternoon a black luxury SUV stopped beside the park. A sharply dressed elderly woman stepped out. She searched every bench nervously. Then she suddenly screamed, "Dad!" Henry slowly turned around. The woman burst into tears and embraced him. She was Henry's daughter, Margaret. For nearly 6 years she had searched across different states after losing contact with him. A volunteer at a nearby shelter had recently recognized Henry from an old missing person article. Margaret couldn't believe someone had cared for her father. When Henry introduced Ethan and Lily, she listened quietly to their story. By the end, tears streamed down her face. "You fed my father while struggling to feed yourselves." Ethan smiled gently. "He would have done the same for us." Margaret owned one of the largest publishing companies in the city. She insisted on helping Ethan. He politely refused. "I didn't help Henry expecting anything." Margaret respected his honesty. Instead, she asked one question. "Would you accept work you've earned?" Ethan nodded. She offered him a management position overseeing renovations for several company buildings. The salary was better than both of his jobs combined. For the first time in years, hope returned. Within months Ethan paid off old debts. He rented a comfortable apartment. Lily finally had her own bedroom painted in her favorite color, yellow. But something inside Ethan had changed forever. He remembered every hungry night, every insult, every lonely walk home. So instead of forgetting the past, he created a small charity called the Lily Lunch Project. Its mission was simple. No child in town would ever have to skip lunch because of poverty. Restaurants donated food, teachers volunteered, local businesses offered support. Soon hundreds of children received healthy meals every single day. News reporters began covering the story. When asked why he started the charity, Ethan smiled at the cameras. "I didn't create this. My daughter did. She taught me that kindness isn't measured by how much you have. It's measured by how much you're willing to give." Months later the school held a community celebration honoring local heroes. The same parents who once laughed at Ethan now stood silently in the audience. The father who had mocked his shoes slowly approached him. "I'm sorry. I judged you without knowing your story." Ethan smiled warmly. "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do afterward." That evening Lily stood on stage holding a small award almost bigger than she was. She looked out at hundreds of smiling faces. Then she said something no one ever forgot. "My daddy says money can build houses. But kindness builds homes." The audience rose to its feet. Many wiped away tears. Henry smiled proudly from the front row beside Margaret. As Ethan looked around the room, he realized something incredible. Years ago, he thought losing everything had made him a failure. But standing there beside his daughter, surrounded by people whose lives had been changed by one little girl's compassion, he understood the truth. Real wealth had never been measured by the size of a bank account. It was measured by the size of a person's heart. And thanks to Lily, an entire town had become richer than anyone could have imagined. The end.